Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And then today we got Miss Miranda on the podcast.
Hello.
Yes, the one and only.
Mm-hmm. Thank goodness.
I feel like I should have like some fanfare. Dun, dun, dun.
I know.
So, how you been? How's this week been for you?
It's good. Crazy. Back at work full time.
Right.
So, yep.
Same thing as before. Just as we had said, the weather's nice, but then it goes back to being hot again. You know, but it's still nice though.
I'd rather this weather than what we had before.
So. You are 100% right. Yeah. Everything for me has been really good so far. It's been a pretty good week. Nothing too crazy's happened, and I got to sit down with some more friends of mine and continue that, like, the creative writing and stuff like that, and that kind of new adventure that I'm going on and creating like a whole story collaboratively with people, which is interesting, and it was a lot of fun, and many jokes were had. And have you ever had those feelings when you have like a really good, like you had to be there kind of moments?
Yes.
like those kind of jokes? That was this past Friday for me. There was a lot of stuff that was like really funny, but like only that core group of probably 5 people would really understand. And it just is nice because I feel like we got to grow together as a group as well, and it was a lot of fun. So,
what about you, Miranda? How was your week?
that's not a good sound.
Stoney and I had put an offer in on a house.
Oh,
which
really?
They turned down.
Uh-oh.
So, and then somebody had the audacity to put in an offer on our house, which they accepted.
Oh, they did
Come
accept
on.
it?
Well, it's pending,
Okay.
so that means they accepted it. So we're kind of been in this regrouping mode, and so we went out and bought too big of a piece of furniture yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Nothing like, what is it, emotional shopping? How would you call that? Retail therapy. Yeah. I'm sad, so I'm going to go buy things. not a good thing
So
to
hopefully
do.
you can come help Saturday. Maybe this huge piece. Around noon, we're going to need you.
Yes, I see.
Luckily, it breaks down into 5 pieces, but then we have to put it all back together again.
Yeah, you went big.
It's gorgeous.
They
We were just
told-
talking a week ago. We were just kind of goofing around and hanging out together, and Miranda showed me this picture of something, and it had one of those rolling ladders on it. And I said,
super cool.
That's what we need in our life, a rolling ladder. And then all of a sudden, this piece pops up, and we've got a rolling ladder.
I feel like this is one of those moments where is it a need or want situation?
Could it be both?
Yes. Yes.
Maybe. Yeah, right. There's a lot of things I feel like I need, and then people will look at me and go, do you need that? I was like, no, but I really want it. Thank you very much.
But we have a very eclectic kind of taste between the two of us.
Okay.
And we both, have been very slowly, because, we have very busy lives,
Right.
trying to make the house feel more like our house.
Yeah.
And so we've changed out some of the big pieces of furniture and stuff. And this is 12 feet wide.
Oh, man.
7 feet, 10 inches tall.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So,
With a rolling ladder.
I don't think that's furniture. That's installation.
but
That is
we can be moving towards that kind of cigar room kind of look for our
cool.
living room that we were
Super
hoping
cool.
for, or a library room. So it will be well used.
Mallory and I had a discussion about something very similar. Is now that we've been engaged for over a month, as you would imagine, people have been asking, like, so when's the date? So
So when is the date?
Yeah, well, we don't have one right now.
Okay.
We have some other things, and we have other life goals that we're trying to accomplish first before we like really nail down a date. And because we want to have like a sit down meal, we want it to be like a really awesome experience, and we want to like really save up some money for it. So and we have some plans, but it's not any time. We're not going to try and jump on the ball ASAP. But the thing that we were thinking about though is our relationship over the past 2 years has been us like slowly but surely like buying things that we want, together, things that we, a new full bedspread or whatever, or go to a garage sale and get a nice dining room table, and then after we get another paycheck or so, getting a bunch of decorations for it. So it's like we've been buying all like these like kitchen appliances, maybe not so many, but like we've been getting all these things like normally you would ask for at like a at like a
Your engagement party.
Your engagement party.
And
so we were
gift.
so we were thinking about this because she was like, "What are we gonna ask for, or what are we gonna put on a registry? Like it's normally stuff that you would like furnish a house with normally." And she's like, "I feel there's always things you could probably
Well, you
ask
just do
for."
the honeymoon registry. That's kind of a trend now.
Oh, okay, I didn't think about that.
Well, for us, we had 2 households to put together.
Oh yeah.
So
Wow, yeah.
we didn't need to ask for really anything except for me. I needed room in the closet. So Miranda had to get rid of the leopard print wing so that I could have some room to put up some of my stuff.
You know,
That could change.
Relationship is all about sacrifice.
But so we didn't need anything. We
Right.
have too much stuff as it is.
Right.
So,
Like 17 barbecues.
yeah.
There you go. Hey, you know,
Mm-hmm. So
everyone has their vices, and
yeah.
one's leopard print and one's barbecue equipment. You know, hey, it's what it is. So yeah.
But it's kind of fun too doing
yeah.
that together. One of the
Right.
things that Miranda and I did learn in this house process, because the house needed some work, a grand amount of work. I mean, a lot
Right.
of work, and they wanted too much money for it. So we were really the only ones to list everything that would need to be done just to get the house up to spec or code. And they still turned us down. And that's fine. But we really learned a lot about each other in that process. I got to watch her do some amazing things, and
Right.
it was just awesome. And we kind of realized through the process how much alike we are on a lot of things. And the vision that popped into our head, we were just on point together with that. And that was really fun.
That's cool.
I know she was kind of sad about it because all the work she had put into it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I was amazed by my wife yet once again.
There you
and just, I like the process for us. And now
I
we
feel
know what we want and what we don't want.
I feel like there's things in friendships as well as like relationships as well that are like these. I want to call for some I want to call them like these like chapters, like these like new these things that happen in your life. I mean, like recently trying to plan a trip to Disney and like paying it off before we got there. Like the past 5 or 6 months, like that whole process of like planning it and getting it all ready. Like Mallory did a lot of legwork, and I helped out where I could, but I don't want to take the credit from her. She did a great job, and it was cool to see her because I think she also has this desire to do that anyways, like plan and kind of she likes to plan trips and plan adventures and kind of do those sort of things. So to see her kind of in her element and organizing things and getting spreadsheets all laid out and just her having a fun time doing that before we even got there, it was cool to see like a new side. But it also helped us both. I will say her structure towards like the financial stuff, like the spreadsheet that we had that was like us paying off, in increments, whatever, has helped me in my personal life now because I've taken that and adopted it in like my own personal thing. It's like, this is actually a really good system that like I want to say we came up with, but like you really came up with it. I kind of put some fine tune adjustments on it, but it's cool to see things like that in your relationship and in your life. So, but anyways. That's a good little introduction, but now
Sure.
what is the real meat and potatoes of today?
Well,
What had happened was
yes. I read the British newspaper every day.
Okay.
And I was scrolling it the other day, and I saw that Freddie Mercury had released a new song. Now, Freddie Mercury has been passed away for 30 plus years. And so I was kind of surprised by that. And it was a pleasant surprise because, he was so iconic for the kind of the music that he produced.
Right.
And I was like, how does this happen? Well, and it comes about that, because the band Queen continued on, for long after he passed.
Yeah.
They had already released, apparently, over the years, several different albums of recorded, Freddie Mercury materials.
Right.
But they found this one song, and it's called "Face It Alone." They had thought for years it had been lost to the cutting room floor because it was done for an album that was, I think, released in 1988.
Wow.
So they believed it was lost, and then somebody somehow came across it in a box 30 years later, and so they released this song. So it got us talking about all of these celebrities that are kind of worth more dead than they ever were when they were alive, or these families of celebrities that are continuing to put out their material after they passed, or movies after they passed.
Right.
So it created this whole idea of, what do you think about that?
I mean, isn't that like the whole premise of, is it Van Gogh? Yeah. Isn't that like his whole, the whole story behind his artwork was that no one really cared about it, and then all of a sudden,
until he passed.
Yeah, and then everyone's like, this is actually like really beautiful work. It's crazy to think about.
With
main contender,
with painters, with media artists, they're always worth more after they're deceased than when they're alive.
Of course.
But usually with celebrities, they're selling their persona. So
exactly.
It's hard to imagine being, how much you can do once you're dead. But evidently there's a huge trend of it. And when you start doing a little bit of a deep dive online, you see all sorts of crazy stuff.
Well, one of the I did a little research on this when we started talking about it, and I kind of hope this does become a big hit for Queen. I think it's really cool. But there's been some really mainstream songs that became hits after the artist died.
Right.
Sitting on the Dock of the Bay by Otis Redding became famous after he passed.
Wow.
1999 by Prince.
Okay.
Became famous after he passed. Sam Cooke, A Change Is Gonna Come. A Little Less Conversation by Elvis Presley became bigger after he passed. And Queen had another one, A Winter's Tale, Nirvana, about a girl.
Yeah.
After their singer passed.
Yep.
So it's really interesting that people are really interested in somebody once they pass on.
Well, yeah, I think it also, a very modern situation of that is not but a few days ago, or I guess at the time of this, at the time of this recording a few days ago, but sometime last week, for those listening, the actor that plays Hagrid in Hogwarts and in
we were just talking about.
and Harry Potter had passed away, and everyone, I think the first one he shows up in is the second one, I think, or
no, he's in the first episode. He's in the very first one.
I don't know the Harry Potter films very well, but I just know that, like, again, the surge of people watching that, because again, it's just the idea of like.
Well, we tried, because Stoney has never watched any of the Harry Potter movies, and we tried to watch it on was it on the Fire Stick that you were looking?
Yeah.
And everything that was listed as the original Sorcerer's Stone was not the original.
Right.
It was other movies.
I was so terrible.
Really?
Because I was actually in the mood to watch it.
Yeah.
And it was everything but. So we're going to drop back and punt. I may try to find it on eBay or Amazon or something, and just have the first couple of ones shipped to me, and we'll watch it that way.
We opened up our smart TV, and it was the first thing on their big headline. It's like, like the big like, watch Harry Potter now, like and
but that passing will increase the popularity and the viewership of those movies, because people are going to be very curious about it.
Because I think it also, I think it's just part of also being like a human, is like the idea of dying and then like passing on.
Well, there's a
and
little
then
bit
leaving behind a legacy kind of thing.
Well, and there's a bit of morbid curiosity,
of course,
in there as well. With the Harry Potter movies, I think we've kind of gone through 2, if not 3 generations of watching them, because when you look at the production date of that first one, I think it was 2000 or 2001.
Right.
Like, I remember taking my kids to it, and that wouldn't have probably been, we probably had to watch those original ones on DVD or something, because they were born in 2000 and 2001.
But think about this also. He was famous because of this. But he was also famous in his James Bond roles. So what about the people who liked him in James Bond, who go, oh, man, I know that actor. And, oh, wait, he was in Harry Potter? And now they'll go back and look at the old James Bond movies. That'll have a resurgence. And then those new people will go, well, what did he do in these Harry Potter movies? And they'll check that out just to be curious about a star that they liked.
Robbie Coltrane, that's his name.
Robbie Coltrane,
yes.
Okay. But it's I think because I know that I've done something very similar is I may have like known about an artist of some variety, and then something happens, or they release a new album or something, and then I get curious, and then I listen to some things, or I dabble in their discography or whatever, and I realize I'm like, I actually like this stuff more than I thought I did.
Right.
That could heavily play into some of that as well. It's like all of a sudden this because again, obviously, like for instance, like a big name in music, like Freddie Mercury dies, and then everyone, even people that may not even like the music, will be like, oh, okay, let's go ahead and listen to a song. Like, I mean, as like a little tribute or whatever, or just like you said, morbid curiosity, because what you're hearing right now may never happen again, or at least so we think. It's like this is it. Like, this is the end of a legacy almost. This is what he's left behind. Now he's gone, or she, whatever.
Queen has released 8 albums.
That's crazy.
Since Freddie died, which is kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. But I was, when I started doing a little bit of research on all this posthumous production, like you said, Prince, he's had hits released. Janis Joplin was another one. George Harrison. And what was funny was John Lennon, Yoko Ono released an album following, it was called Milk and Honey. And it came out in 1984, which was, 4 years after he passed. It actually won the Grammy.
Oh my gosh.
Did you ever think that Yoko Ono would win a Grammy? Like,
that's crazy.
That's mind-boggling. But there's so many musicians that have released material afterwards, and you just have to wonder: does that actually, are their families selling off the rights to that? Do they ever get a penny of it, or is it just the producers and everybody that gets it, or what happens in these cases? Because
when it comes to like the music industry, it's really messed up. It's really scuffed, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, if you look at the way it is, what's his name? Michael Jackson owned the Beatles. Yeah. He owned all the rights to the Beatles. He owned all the rights to a great number of artist music.
Right.
So who gets that now?
I don't know. That's crazy.
But I think it's really interesting how many things are recorded. Miranda mentioned a couple. The Doors. Other voices came out after somebody had passed. She mentioned John Lennon. Queen, Made in Heaven was released after his passing. And Nirvana, the MTV Unplugged album, which was recorded obviously before he passed, which is an unplugged, which means they were playing there with no electric, so to speak. And then that became a popular album after he passed.
That's crazy. Like a big thing... One thing that is like sidesteps this whole conversation too is the idea of like digital versus analog media as well. Is like, it's so interesting to think that like now everything's digital really. So I mean, like, you could just like delete a track, and then of course it could really realistically be gone forever. Possibly.
And that's what's neat about this story is this was something that was really on the cutting room floor. Somebody picked it up, put it in a box, and kept it for
There was probably a tape reel somewhere of like recorded stuff that's like
But so many artists have done that.
Yeah.
And one thing that is interesting to me was when Miranda and I went to Vegas about a little over a year ago, you could have went and watched Elvis as a hologram.
Yeah.
And his music, his original music as a hologram. And you're sitting here going, we didn't do that. I wanted, might have, but I knew that wouldn't really, appeal to her very much.
Right.
But,
well, I heard the same thing with like Tupac or whatever. It's like you can watch like this like crazy big rap artist as a hologram, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Well, how about the Van Gogh exhibit?
Yeah.
They're, punching the stuff on all the walls, and it's all hologram and video, and
except for in England where they're throwing soup at it. So.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, you didn't see that on the news?
No, I didn't.
No, 2 protesters.
Well, she
went
reads
into
the English news every morning, so that's probably why she gets the hot button, the scoop right there.
Yeah, 2 really friendly looking women went into the British Museum where the Van Gogh was being held. and they threw, I think, tomato soup all over the painting, and then glued themselves to the wall or something. Yeah, it was.
Wow,
they've been charged, and who knows what's going to happen.
Sounds like some psychiatric problems.
That sounds like those two guys who were at the Vatican and they wanted to see the Pope, and the Pope wouldn't see him, so they destroyed two.
Oh, I saw that.
Centuries old statues and just destroyed them because they were mad.
They're like marble busts or something, right?
Jeez, man.
People are crazy.
People are messed up.
But
there's a song title that people are crazy.
Yeah,
Billy Carrington, I think.
But with what you were talking about with the AI, earlier this month, at the beginning of the month, it came out and it was over all the papers, and it was on TV and everything else that Bruce Willis was the first celebrity to sell his likeness to one of these deep fake companies to make a digital twin of himself to be used in movies. And initially he came out and he said, yes, he has, because, he's got that brain condition that, he's not really probably ever going to be in another film. But
there's a good way he can still make money, though, right?
It's a great way he could still make money. He's backtracked on that now and said he did not sell his likeness to that firm, but that broke the news everywhere. So I have a feeling that maybe he just got some negative publicity from it and decided to do a little backpedaling.
Right.
But when you think about it, every time you see Elvis in something, or you see Marilyn Monroe or any of these celebrities that are mentioned, or their pictures are shown in things and advertisements, somebody's making a commission off of all of that.
Right.
Of course.
Someone's licensing it.
And that's the big thing. That this is where we start getting existential. We get really, really big here. Is like, what is your likeness? What is, like, how would you trademark your face? Like, I don't think. I mean, the thing is, there may be some of that I don't know about, because again, I'm not privy to that kind of knowledge because I'm not dealing with it. I'm not dealing with people that are probably worth multi-million dollars. But is there a copyright for someone's likeness where it's like you, or what is the regulations between that? Where
Well, we delved into this on a past episode. What is art in the modern age? What is it, the NILs, where you can sell an original photograph of you that supposedly nobody else has.
Right.
And that can be worth a lot of money because you can now use that for anything you want.
Right.
You could use it to promote a product or anything, and the artist sells that to you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to do, I never got into print work, but I used to do, like, I used to be a freelance photographer for a lot of stuff. And I really love studio work. And that's a big thing, is like, as a photographer, you have certain rights. Like, if you take a picture, like, that is your photo. Like, even if it's of somebody else, a lot of times that is still like your.
You own the
as
copyright.
long as you have the permission to take that picture, right?
I think within reason. But I mean, if you're a professional in a studio and there's like somebody there, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure there may be some caveats there, but for the most part, like, any kind of photo that you take, like, is, even if it is of somebody else, that
because you've either paid them to do that or they've given up. They sign a statement stating that you have permission to do that.
Right.
So,
but I think even still, in certain circumstances where like candid stuff, where they're unaware, I still even think that, like, that person doesn't own the rights to that photo.
okay.
Now, and I think, like, video stuff may be different, but I know for myself, like, from what I've learned, because I read up on a lot of it, was even if you take a photo of somebody else and they claim, I mean, there could be, if you're defacing them and, like, you're trying to, like, make them look bad, like, there could be, like, a plea against you. But a lot of times, like, if someone tries to argue that, like, that's a photo of me, that's my photo, I have the rights to that, that's not the case.
Okay.
You're the photographer.
I think it depends if there's an expectation of privacy.
I think so.
So it's like,
yeah.
if you took a candid picture of somebody that
Right.
was sitting out,
Right.
with their spouse in a restaurant, and you just took their picture and then went and sold it to Shutterstock or something to try to make money off of it, then that might not exactly be kosher. But
Right,
if you were, if somebody came in and you had hired them as a role because you were taking pictures of people eating to sell on Shutterstock, well, then they wouldn't have a claim.
Of course, yeah. Like I said, I don't, when it comes to all the rights and the copyrights and all that kind of stuff.
Well, everything gets
really,
so diluted and muddy
man.
because everybody has certain expectations that can change tomorrow.
Right.
And then that's what lawyers are for.
A big thing that I feel like people don't fully understand, and it's hard to understand because it's not like taught anywhere really, is like the copyright with music. It's like, even though you, like for instance, YouTube, like if you post a video and even in like the description, if you say like
I don't own this.
Yeah, all rights are to that owner. That doesn't matter. Like that is still a video, and you're still taking the product. Like that. I think that's the.
Well, how many seconds are you allowed to sample before?
7 seconds, I think.
Possibly. I don't even know. So I think that's where it gets. That's where the waters get muddied for me, is like copyright with music, and then what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, because you're allowed to do a lot less than you think you do.
And there's so much out there.
Yeah.
Music is really just a mathematical process.
Yep.
And there's been so much music made over the, centuries.
Yep.
That they're starting to sound alike. And then did you actually steal their stuff, or did you come up with it on your own and it happens to sound like them? There's a number of huge court battles going on right now over sampling and people taking other people's product.
Yep. That's crazy.
Now, there's a celebrity that is associated with the town that we're all in that actually is the majority shareholder to own the likenesses of Elvis, of Marilyn Monroe, of Muhammad Ali.
Oh, my God.
Several other key characters. Any clue who that might be?
How do you get into the business of of collecting people's likenesses?
Sean Pitty, Daddy Combs, or whatever?
No, your buddy Shaq.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Really?
Yes. He spent $135 million to be the number 2 shareholder for Authentic Brands. And that's the company that owns all of the likenesses. Wow. So it's like Elvis's estate earns over $60 million a year.
Oh, I do not doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Guess who the number 1 celebrity earner was for 2021? And it is nobody that you'll ever guess, I don't think.
I can't even begin to imagine. I would say like the Beatles is probably what I just for some reason.
Meghan Markle.
She just wishes.
Uh-huh.
Actually, Roald Dahl, the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Matilda and all those things.
What?
Netflix paid $513 million to Roald Dahl's estate to have the rights to all of his material, I guess, to make a bunch of new Netflix shows.
Okay.
So he was the number 1 celebrity earner for like posthumous celebrities. Elvis usually tops the list. Elvis kind of rolls in at around $60 million a year. Michael Jackson tops the list at about $60 million a year. Mm-hmm. Elvis, he's usually $35-40 million a year. So, there's some big estates. Charles Schultz, the guy with Peanuts, he's always number 3 on the list.
Always number 3. What the heck?
Mm.
So it's like, I'm sure that these people are making far more dead than they were alive.
Oh,
and it's like Michael Jackson, when he was alive, was kind of in that perpetual state of bankruptcy. So it makes you, it always lends credence to the idea that he was helped along the way because he was more of a liability to his family alive than he was when he passed.
That's crazy.
One thing that always kind of gets me with the artist passing situation is what happens when they pass in the middle of a project.
Oh, yeah.
I remember because of some of my martial art past, Bruce Lee, he died in the middle of a movie. Part of that is that some martial arts believe that when you are at your 100% best,
right,
your demon is going to come after you and try to kill you. And that supposedly happened in one of his movies, and he passed right at the end of making that movie.
That's crazy.
And if you don't defeat that demon goes on to your children. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, his son Brandon Lee is killed in the middle of making The Crow. And they had to use CGI and everything else to finish that movie.
Wow.
And what was it? I think you and I were talking earlier. Paul Walker was another one who died, and they had to use his brother in CGI to finish the movie. And that happens a lot more than we think.
Heath Ledger and the Joker, remember what was that, Dark Knight?
Yep.
Same thing happened.
So that's really interesting. How do they do that? And do you have to buy the rights to that person now to create that identity, or how does that work, I wonder? I just remember the fallout from Brandon Lee, because that was kind of really one of the first big name type that came. I mean, he wasn't a big name, but just that whole process on how they finished the film was big news at the time because he was Bruce Lee's son.
I'm not sure if this is the one that I'm thinking of, but there are I'm trying to think.
Isn't this nice, the big studio and the computers, so we can kind of do research and everything while we're talking? Isn't this great?
This I don't think this is the person I'm thinking of. Bruckner, which I think is a composer, died while writing his 9th symphony. He believed that he could cheat death if his next symphony was titled rather than numbered, apparently. Anyways, I don't think this one. I think I'm looking at the wrong situation. The story that I'm trying to look at is that there was a famous classical composer, or maybe not so famous, that had died in the middle of writing a symphony, and you can actually hear you can hear an actual symphony play this, and then of course there's a point whenever it keeps going and it's going strong, and it kind of gets messy, and then it stops, and it just is interesting to think about playing a piece of music at up until the very end and then just stopping. It's just kind of
seemed like somebody would have finished it for
right.
him, right?
What I'm saying is it just kind of feels that same sort of morbid curiosity. I want to hear it, but at the same time it's also kind of scary and interesting.
Well, you know how you hear the movie Shrek and the character Shrek, and you associate that with Michael Myers, right?
Yeah.
Guess who was supposed to be Shrek?
Oh, I don't know.
Chris Farley.
Wow.
When you think about it, that would have been great casting.
Yeah.
But he died before Shrek was supposed to be made, so he was slated to be Shrek. So they actually came out with one of his movies after he died as well. But when I was reading about it, because you don't even think of Shrek as being anybody but Mike Myers. So,
right. That something you said there kind of reminded me. You have a separate podcast, the Aftermath, right?
Right.
Where y'all discuss movies.
A lot of times I try to pull up fun facts online, and we talk about the fun facts of the film.
Well, I have one for you that I would like for y'all to add to your list. Okay. And it's with Richard Dreyfuss, and it's a music. It's about a composer. It's called Mr. Holland's Opus.
Okay.
And he's a high school teacher, but for years and years he's been trying to write this opus. And it is I think one of the best movies ever made. So that just kind of, I don't know why, when you were discussing the composer there, put that into my head and how he has to finish it and things like that.
Yeah.
Y'all need to check that out on
Definitely.
your podcast. And to our listeners, please listen to the Aftermath also.
I appreciate it. So apparently, just doing a little bit of light research, I never knew this. It says the Curse of the Ninth is what it's called, is a superstition connected with the history of classical music. It is believed that the 9th symphony is destined to be the composer's last, and that the composer will be fated to die while or after writing it, or before completing his 10th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't there's a similar type of thing for celebrities that have supposedly sold their soul, that they die when they're 27.
Interesting.
Remember that? All the different celebrities that have died when they're 27 years old? And there's a name for it. There is a name for that. And I'm trying to recall it. But when you start looking at the list of celebrities that passed when they were 27, it's uncanny. It's uncanny
That's
how many
crazy.
have passed.
I want to know what is it called in science? Correlation versus causation.
Yes.
It's what is the correlation of drug intake at 27 from famous people?
Well, and speaking of drug, Kurt Cobain, he was one of them. I think Heath Ledger was another. Amy Winehouse, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix. They were all 27, but they were also all taking drugs. But why didn't they die when they were 26?
The 27 Club.
The 27 Club.
The 27 Club. That sounds very familiar. How interesting.
It's Well, I guess I'm well past that. I don't need to worry.
I guess you made it.
I made it.
Is there a combination of the two mythos? Is like you sell your soul to the devil, but like just like with the Lee story, like at 27 you fight your demon. And if you win, you get to survive on. Oh man.
I guess I'm glad I'm not famous.
I mean, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, because we got the podcast going, right?
These celebrities that have passed away and that still have their likeness or some manner of their likeness being used, that's all fine and good, but they're kind of the exception of the rule. Whenever we go, when we're done, and it's kind of shocking. We've all in all of our circles had several people pass in the past few years. To me it's a little sad. It's like these celebrities kind of have an immortality because they can be on screen or on the radio forever. But, when regular folks die, that's kind of it. It's like people even kind of forget about you other than thinking about you on the holidays 6 months after you're gone or if that.
I agree, but I wonder, do we leave a part of ourselves with the people around us? As you both know, I've lost a couple of people in the last couple of years, and those people are part of who I am today. All the way back to when I was moving out of my mother and father's house, the people that I started meeting to help change me and put me in the role that I am, 40 years later today at almost 60 years old. And I think they do live on, just in us. And it's up to us to keep that memory alive too and to talk about them. And that's kind of what I hope for Magnus, is that I can leave part of myself with him. That'll help him be a better person, and one day he'll appreciate that and continue to grow, and he'll look back and understand why we did and said the things we did.
We can only hope.
We can hope. And a lot of prayer.
Oh, man. Faith, trust, and pixie dust. I'm kidding.
And hopefully not a lot of attorney fees, right?
Right. Man, that's funny. Okay.
It's a little sad though. We went and did the deep dive there. But,
yeah.
It's there's that's the fragile thing about being human.
Oh yeah.
Well, when I was in Colorado, my grandparents drove all the way from South Louisiana to come see me in Colorado. I lived on the western slope for a little while there, and one of the things I wanted to get it to was in a town called Glenwood Springs. You could go see Doc Holliday's grave.
Yeah.
And I had seen it, and then I took them up to it, and they were blown away by it. But this second time, I actually got to meet the caretaker of the little cemetery that was on this little hill. You had to walk almost a quarter of a mile around the hill to get to the top of it. And you're looking at it, and there's this gorgeous monument. There's this beautiful wrought iron all the way around it. And you look inside the grave, there's people throw bullets, poker chips, cards, money, all this kind of stuff down into the center of the grave. And you're talking to the caretaker, and he says, all of that stuff we sell on eBay. We take pictures of it. This was on Doc Holliday's grave. We keep the money. And this is how we take care of this whole gravesite there.
That's crazy.
And we paid for the monument, paid for the wrought iron to be around it. It's just kind of, like you said, it's how they live on. I wonder what happens to all the
stuff that people leave on Marie Laveau's tomb in New Orleans, because that's something that people flock to as well.
Sure. Absolutely. Wow.
That's
and then
crazy.
You have people like Genghis Khan who they can't find out where he was buried.
And wasn't he supposedly buried with like 1,000 soldiers or something? Like, it would be a big grave.
He had like 1,000 children or something like that too, I think.
Yeah.
Well, there's a certain percentage, like 6% of the world shares his genes
right
now.
That's crazy.
So
that's
now,
right.
speaking of that, cremation or being buried? Because you see, all these people that we're talking about their graves, they're usually their graves. So, they're usually where they are interred. But you can't do that if someone just dumps your ashes into the ocean or on a hill or.
Well, you could still have a monument.
You could.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can understand I can understand why people don't like the idea of like being buried in one location. Because I do agree with the sentiment of it. Like when I'm gone, please don't go like to a graveyard to like remember me. You know what I mean? like if you're gonna remember me, make it somewhere cool. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you're gonna remember me, you're gonna toast to the life that I had, remember who I am, like do it while you're doing something fun at least, or you know, somewhere beautiful where it's not to say that graveyards can be beautiful, but just, you know, that's not a place where I would want to be remembered by. So I get that. I was always kind of raised, again, it was just normal to be buried. So that still feels normal to me, and cremation kind of feels a little like the other.
Well, in like
but
New
recently,
York, they're not burying people horizontal anymore.
Yeah.
They're burying them vertical because they're running out of space.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just digging a flat 6 feet down, they're having to dig a hole 12 feet down so that the top of it's still 6 feet down.
Jeez.
So, yeah.
Do they stack them?
Oh, they don't. That's what I'm saying. It's just they have to dig the hole down 12 feet so the top of the coffin is still 6 feet down.
Mm-hmm.
So in a cask like this, then they put the casket in like
And
that.
fill it back up with dirt. That's exactly what they do.
Wow.
I'm lending toward cremation because I really believe, you know, being close to 60 years old, that's my last chance for a smoking hot body.
Oh,
But, you
man.
know, I'm just saying.
He's here all week, folks.
Yeah. You can catch me here every Monday.
That's right. Every Monday at 6 a.m. we drop another one, folks. Join in.
The one thing I thought was kind of cool, and this may be a little hippy dippy of me, but like they have those like biodegradable pod things where like you can incorporate your ashes into like some sort of like tree heart, tree root or whatever, and then of course get it planted, and then, you know, it can be a big tree somewhere. And I'm like, that it not only would I could leave a legacy of my life, but I could also leave behind like a cool tree that could also help the environment in some capacity.
They can also take the ashes and turn it into a diamond now.
Oh, wow.
Yes, a laboratory created diamond.
Jeez. That's crazy.
And see, and my first degree is anthropology. I've always had a love of ancient history.
Right.
I do not want to be cremated.
Okay.
I want to be buried like in a vat of honey or something so I don't rot.
Right, there
and,
you go.
You know, someone can dig me up in a few thousand years and I'll be perfectly preserved.
Or you should need to be preserved in amber. Yeah.
But,
Honey never goes bad.
Yeah.
They found honey 1,000 years old that you could technically still eat if you wanted.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't they find
They found meat preserved in honey that was like 2,000 years old, and they ate it.
But they also found this thing of butter. Remember?
Yes.
They found like a 10-pound.
in the bogs, the peat bogs.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you could still eat the butter.
Wow.
I don't think you would want to,
No.
because anything in peat bogs.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes.
Yucky.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But it's a whole industry. You know, it's the when you look at the difference from 100 years ago, you know, the kind of the tail end of the Victorian era, where death was an industry, and now death is something we completely avoid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
just over 100 years ago, you still had bell ringers, where you had a string down into the coffin in case you weren't actually dead. You could ring the bell and they could dig you back up. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Dead isn't always dead.
I know. Yeah.
You know, there were some things that people would get buried and then wake up and go, "Oh wow, I'm buried," and have to ring the bell.
Well, people, there wasn't funeral homes.
Jeez.
You know, the whole death industry was done at home. Your family washed you and dressed you, and you know, you laid in waiting or whatever it's called in your living room, and that's, you know, where your neighbors came to say their goodbyes, and then you were taken off to the graveyard, and you know, it was a whole different thing. You know, with childhood death rates, what they were. Everybody had kids that had passed. Everybody had siblings that had passed. You know, death was a part of life. And people always like to say, well, 100 years ago, people only lived till they're 40. Well, that was a bit of a misnomer, because most deaths occurred before kids were 5. And so that lowered the overall averages. If you lived through your childhood, the chances of you making it to 60 or 70 were pretty darn good. But it was getting through those childhood years. And that's why you even see all those pictures. If you ever look at the old daguerreotypes and tintype pictures that you can find, where they have that whole death industry of photography, you know, maybe this is where it all started with what we were talking about today, you know, making stuff after people had passed.
Right.
But the Victorians did that, where they dragged their their dead kids or their dead family members down to the local photographer. And you'll see in all these old pictures, they had stands to prop up people. That. They would, use things to hold open their eyes, or if they put fake eyeballs on them if they happened to have been passed away for a little longer than what they expected. And they took a family picture because, pictures were so expensive that you might not have had a regular picture of somebody before they passed, but you sure as heck wanted to have something to remember them after.
Right.
So.
Need I say Weekend at Bernie's?
Oh, gosh. I just thought it was also interesting, like we talked about this a few weeks ago, like the passing of the Queen. It was crazy to look at some like news outlets and how they had like the casket there on this like huge pedestal. Like people were lined up for hours and hours just to get a look at like the box that the Queen was in. And it's like, man, that's crazy to think about.
Well, she was everybody's granny.
Oh, of course,
she was their de facto granny because she had been the Queen for so long that you had 4 or 5 generations of Brits and people from the rest of the Commonwealth and in the free world that all kind of still saw her as being the Queen.
Right.
She's been in that role their whole lives.
Well,
so they've never known anybody different.
She was the monarch
70 years.
Just about as long as people normally live anyways. So it's like, it's crazy to think about that.
She took office 10 years before I was born.
Wow.
That's
crazy.
That's just, if you think about it, that's just insane.
Yeah.
And where I grew up, she was on all of our coins,
all
of our dollars.
Oh yeah. I still have a Canadian 20 that has the Queen's face on it, and I'm like, that is definitely a keepsake now.
It's gonna be weird seeing stuff come out with Charles's face. I will admit.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a little creepy scene.
It's hard to
seeing that.
I've heard from many people that are over there that's a hard pill to swallow. Now looking at it as long live the king.
Well, what gets really interesting about that whole aspect is that there's rules in the monarchy and the royalty that as long as your ex is still alive, you can't marry somebody else to become queen. And that's why they believe Princess Diana was killed. Was that so Charles could actually marry, what's her, Cruella de Vil? What's her name? I'm sorry. Camilla, that's right. I knew it was something like that.
Close enough.
How to win friends and influence people.
There you go. How to win friends. Wow.
So.
Now, there was some well-known psychic that predicted to the day that the Queen would pass. And his subsequent prediction was that Charles is only going to reign for 4 years. And what did he say? March 22nd? March 26th, 2026, or March 23rd, 2026. Charles will pass and William will become king. So that will be very interesting if that's the case. And
how old is William at this point? Because he's in his 40s?
Around 40, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I think he's about 40.
It's just crazy to think that like we may never have a person like that again. I know we talked about this in a previous episode. I won't go into it too much, but it was such a. That's why it was such a big deal for me. Was like, I don't think I'll ever live to see a person like that ever again, like rule for that long and be as big a person in history as the Queen. So
he is 40 years old.
Okay.
There you go. Oh, exactly 40. Well, there you go.
So it's going to be very interesting to watch England, how they roll with this, and the rest of the Commonwealth countries. So it's definitely we're watching history unfold right now.
Oh, right. I think it's interesting too with her passing. There's a country saying they want their jewel back that was taken so many years ago. There's so many now. How many of them are trying to succeed from their union or whatever it is and declare their independence now that she's gone?
And what do you do? Like, what is the likeness of the Queen? Like, how does that play into things? Like, how
she's no longer the Queen now.
I know,
so now it's King Charles.
But what I'm saying is like everyone's using pictures of her on things as like like rest in peace. And it's like it's crazy to think to bring it back to the original part of it. It's like.
Well, they can't have you beheaded now for that kind of stuff anymore.
Okay.
But, 200 years ago, I think they could.
With public figures like that, I believe that there's a certain amount of photos that are released by, officially. They were released through official channels that these are for public use.
Got it.
But they have to be used in their whole or their entirety. Like you couldn't put like a mustache on it and sell it kind of thing.
Right.
And so those are the official portraits that are used. And then you have all the other ones that paparazzis take or other people license. If they hire a professional photographer to make official portraits, those may or may not be released to the public. And those may be things that news outlets have to pay licensing fees to use.
Yeah. Interesting.
But we kind of came full circle today.
Yeah.
Wow.
How nice.
I just wish we could have some of these checks rolling in for us right now instead of having to wait till we pass. So.
For real.
You're going to sell my likeness when I pass, baby?
No, baby.
Yeah. Your estate is going to skyrocket. There you go. Okay. I don't know what all is encompassing in the Stoney estate.
15 barbecues.
Yeah.
15 barbecues.
Right.
A couple of rounds of ammo.
Hey.
Maybe a gun or two. Some books. I got some books.
There you go. Hey.
We're going to have some really big furniture.
Yeah. Big furniture.
Mine is instruments and camera equipment. So, I mean, hey, I get it. Well.
All right.
What an
now that we've had, that we've challenged our mortality.
Exactly. That's the thing is, I'm trying to figure out how to really land this plane here.
Just kind of glad we're all over 27 years old at this point.
Right. Just barely. I'm 28
We
this
can
year.
get famous
but
with
you
the
made
podcast.
it.
I made it over the hump. Now I can get famous.
Right.
That's it. I love it. That's the thing I was trying to figure out. I was like, how do I gently land this after talking about something so heavy as death? But I mean, hey,
you know what?
It's part of life.
It's two sides. It's two sides of the coin. You can't have one without the other.
Of course. Yep.
The day we're born, we're dying.
Yep. Well, and again, another thing too. Like I think we talked about this on a previous episode as well. It's like just appreciate what you have because, as it's not guaranteed. None of it's guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Right. So
apparently, especially if you're 27 and famous,
especially between the years of 5 and 27. Apparently.
I think we had a pretty interesting look at what people's likenesses are, their actual as an artist, your product, what can be done with that, and how it's interesting to watch those things, how it's changed over the years,
right,
to where it is today, and people are actually selling their likeness to be able to be used when they've passed already.
Right.
So,
all right. Well, for any of you out there who are looking to get in touch with us or want to give us a recommendation for a topic, you can reach us at facebook.com/retrospectpod, or you can just go to linktree.com/retrospectpod, and you should see all of our links, all the different places you can listen to our show on all the platforms and all that. But anyways, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, bye-bye.
Take care.
Peace.